What's up guys, we're back to build another Magic the Gathering deck, and today we are doing a black-white knight deck using only cards from the Dominaria set. So initially I wanted to do this as a budget deck. I had planned to keep the cost below $25, but that just wasn't possible with the knights. The issue with the knights is that they're all fairly small creatures, and you just need a couple key cards to make this deck work, and unfortunately those cards are pretty expensive. So I kept the cost fairly low, but it's not exactly a budget deck. So let's go ahead and start with our lands. We are including 8 swamps and 14 plains in the deck for a total of 22 lands. So that is on the low side, but most of the creatures in this deck are going to be low cost, so I feel okay doing that. The first creature we're going to add to the deck is Tesh, the legendary bird cleric. You're probably wondering why we're adding this card to a knight deck, and it's just because it ties the whole deck together really nicely. It allows you to bring a creature card back from the graveyard to the battlefield whenever you cast a historic spell, as long as that creature's converted mana cost is 3 or less. So the good news for us is we're going to have a lot of historic spells in this deck in the form of artifacts, and also about half of our creatures have a converted mana cost of 3 or less. So this card's going to come in fairly handy. We're adding 2 to the deck at $3 a piece. Next up we're adding Knight of Grace. So this is a 2/2 with first strike for 2 mana, so that alone is a great value. But additionally, this card gets +1/+0 if any player has black permanents. And since we are playing a black-white deck, chances are we'll have a black permanent out there. So we're adding 2 of this card to the deck, costing us $1. And then Knight of Malice is basically the black version of this card. We're also adding 2 of this card to the deck. Up next, we are adding 2 copies of Quende. This is a legendary knight, 2/2 for 4 mana, which is a little bit pricey, but he does have double strike. The real reason we're adding him is because of his ability that gives all creatures with first strike double strike. And then we're going to add 2 copies of Josting Lance. So this is a fairly cheap artifact that'll give one of your creatures a little bit extra power, as well as first strike as long as it's your turn. And then if you have Quende out there, it'll have double strike as well. And then we're going to add 2 copies of Cabal Paladin. So this is a 4/2 knight for 4 mana. So again, a little bit pricey, but we're adding it mainly because of its ability. Whenever you cast a historic spell, this card will do 2 damage to each of your opponents. This deck is going to have a fair amount of artifacts in it, so you should be setting off that ability quite often. This next card is one of the more expensive cards in the deck. It's currently going for $4 a piece, but we're adding a full playset of Helm of the Host to the deck. So this card basically makes copies of the creature it's equipped to, even if that creature is legendary. So this is a very nice way for us to duplicate our creatures that give us buffs. And then we're adding a full playset of Icy Manipulator to the deck. So this is probably one of my favorite cards in this set right now, and it's super important to this deck just because we're not going to have any flyers. So this is a really good way of just dealing with your opponent's creatures that you can't block. You just want to tap them on your opponent's turn. It's a really good all-around card, so we're going to add 4 of these to the deck. And then the last artifact we're adding is going to be Artifact Creature, Voltaic Servant. So it's a 1/3 creature for 2 mana. This guy lets you untap an artifact at the end of your turn, so essentially this card will let us use our Icy Manipulator twice, once on your turn, once on your opponent's turn. So we're adding 2 of this card to the deck. Next up is our big boy. This is Josu Vice. This is a 4/5 zombie knight, costs us 4 mana, but you really want to save this guy in your hand until mid-game when you can actually kick it. If you can kick it, you get the 4/5 creature, as well you get 8 2/2 zombie knight tokens. Everyone has menace, there's no way your opponent will be able to block them. This is a great card to include. We're adding 2 of them to the deck, costing us $3. And then we're going to add 1 copy of Arvad the Cursed. This is a 3/3 legendary knight, costing us 5 mana. The nice thing about this one is it does give your other legendary creatures +2/+2. So we're not going to have a ton of legendary creatures in the deck, but enough to allow us to include 1 copy of this card. And then we're adding 2 copies of Ariel Knight of Windgrace. This is a 4/4 legendary knight, costing us 4 mana. Couple of really good abilities on this card. You can use it to add additional knight tokens to your battlefield, or if you have enough knights out there, you can tap them all to destroy some of your opponent's creatures. So this card goes for 250 a piece, and we're adding 2 to the deck. Next up, we're adding 2 copies of Baird. Now he isn't a knight, but he's got a really good ability. So this is a 2/4 soldier for 4 mana. He's going to make it a little bit tougher for your opponent to attack you. They're going to have to pay 1 mana for each creature that attacks. So this is just a thorn in their side, something to annoy them, but we're adding 2 copies at $1 a piece. And then our final legendary creature is Donessa. So this is a knight 2/2 for 3 mana. She's got first strike, vigilance, and lifelink. Additionally, she makes all of your equipment a little bit cheaper to cast, so we're adding 2 copies at 50 cents a piece. And then our final creature is probably one of our more important ones. This is Marshal, 3/3 for 3 mana, and it gives all your other creatures +1/+1. So this card costs $4, we're adding a full playset to the deck. We've got room for a few instants now, so let's add 2 copies of Invoke the Divine. This lets you get rid of any artifact or enchantment, additionally you gain 4 life. And last up we got Adept Will. So this is another quick instant, just lets you save one of your creatures possibly. And there it is, that is our Dominaria Knight deck. So not exactly a budget deck, but it didn't really break the bank either. I do tend to go fairly creature heavy on my decks, so you might want to tweak this a bit, play with it a bit, maybe get rid of a few creatures, add a few more sorceries or instants. If you have some extra money to spend, History of Banality is a really nice card to add. I hope you enjoyed that, and we will see you guys next time.